My question was, explain the significance of the creation of Israel in post-war European geopolitics. First, some background knowledge. This is the portrait of Lord Balfour along with his famous declaration on November 2nd, 1917. This letter confirmed the support of the British government developing a homeland for the Jewish people in the land of Palestine. This was sent to Baron Rothschild, the leader of the British Jewish community, to transmit to the Zionist Society of Ireland and Great Britain. Lord Balfour, under domestic pressures in an attempt to decolonize the region, awarded the land. The First War of Independence referred to the period between the United Nations vote on the partition plan on November 30th, 1947, and the official end of the First Arab-Israeli War on July 20th, 1949. On November 29th, 1947, the United Nations recommended the United Kingdom as the mandatory power for Palestine, and that all other members of the United Nations adopt the plan of partition with economic union. This attempted to resolve the Arab-Jewish conflict. The Arab leaders rejected the partition because they did not want any kind of partition at all, because they claimed cultural heritage and property ownership of the lands for hundreds of years. On May 1948, after the declaration of mandatory, Palestine, Transjordan, Egypt, Syria, and Iraq sent expeditionary forces to fight the Israeli army. In 1949, Israel signed separate armistices with Egypt on February 24th, Lebanon on March 23rd, Transjordan on April 3rd, and Syria on July 20th. At the end of the war, the State of Israel retained its originally granted land and almost 60% of the area allocated to the Arab state, including territories in the West Bank and a wide strip along the Tel Aviv-Jerusalem road. The Suez Crisis began when the United States backed down on their promise to fund the construction of the Aswan Dam on the Nile. President Nasser of Egypt then seized the Suez Canal and nationalized it. The British moved in to support France, which believed that Nasser was funding rebellions in the French colonies in Algeria. French and British aircraft destroyed key oil reserves in Port Said during the initial assault. The British sent aid in the form of weapons and money, but most importantly sent modern technologies such as aircraft carriers and non-propeller aircrafts. Aircraft carriers were stationed strategically for air and land battles for plans to land for refueling and repairs. Paratroopers were one of the most common types of ground troops because of their heavy involvement of aircrafts. They were used in Operation Kadesh in order for Israel to claim the Gaza Strip and reopen the Red Sea for the first time since 1953. This blockaded Soviet assistance by sea and allowed in more British and French troops. Once it was obvious that Western powers were becoming involved, the Soviet Union sent weapons to Egypt by land and helped construct the Aswan Dam. This involvement caused Russia to threaten the use of nuclear weapons. In response, Eisenhower cautioned Khrushchev to not intervene. The money sent by the Soviet Union was used to increase Egyptian naval power, but because of British superior navy, many ships were just captured and led by the Israelis. The Soviet Union's perception of Western aggression broke down negotiations with Western countries, specifically the United States. As a whole, the Suez Crisis saw everyone recognized miscommunication between the state and their people, as well as communication between Western powers and the use of multilateral institutions. The United States threatened economic sanctions on France, Britain, and Israel. This was super effective because British and French forces withdrew by December and Israel conceded in March of 1957. As a result, Franco-American ties became distant because of multiple betrayals by the U.S., including the French war effort in Indochina in 1954, which demonstrated the weakness of NATO alliances in effect, displaying them only as a result of lack of planning and cooperation beyond the European stage. In France, the Suez Crisis led to the domestic political separation and military disillusionment, which led to the collapse of the Republic in 1958. As a result, they were almost useless in the political sphere because of their inability to have a stable government. In Britain, Anthony Eden, the Prime Minister at the time, was forced to step down, ushering in the new leader, Harold Macmillan. He led a policy of decolonization rather than Britain acting as a great imperial power. Macmillan became close friends with Eisenhower, opposite of previous miscommunications that occurred during the Suez Crisis. In the aftermath of the Suez Crisis, Britain and France found their influence as world powers weakened. France and Britain failed their political and strategic aims at controlling the canal and removing Nasser from power. Israel was successful at attaining freedom of navigation through the state of Tehran and gained international recognition through UN peacekeepers in Sinai and ended Western efforts to impose political settlement in the Middle East without taking Israel's security needs into consideration. As a result, the UNEF increased policing the Egyptian-Israel border to prevent both sides from recommencing hostilities. At the end of the Suez Crisis, the Sharon Plan came into effect. Gained land was used to develop many small homes in order to quickly expand the population in Israel. Each town had a communal dining hall that increased the amount of houses and limited amounts of space, and also increased community connectiveness. This success was used by the United Nations as a model of societal development in recently decolonized countries.